All right, Shabbat, say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's shir, to thank our TAMLUD Torah sponsor for the month of Iyar, an anonymous sponsorship this year with Hakaras Hatov to Hashem, for all of the blessings He has bestowed upon us, and for refuah Shleima for Devorah Leah bas Chaya Rivka. May we all be zoche meretz Hashem to witness the imminent coming of mashiach mihira b'yameinu. Amen. Beautiful. Our week of learning sponsors, Ariel and Hayley Lichterman, in memory of Hayley's mother, Linda Koteen, zichrono livracha. We hope them the merit of our TAMLUD Torah, then Hashem will have an aliyah, and the family ein nechama. And I will say, of course, we dedicate our learning today in the discourse of tremendous Hakaras Hatov to the Ribono Shel Olam, for the overwhelming miracle that our generation, our previous generation, has witnessed in the founding of Medinas Yisrael. And again, as I always say, no matter how you celebrate this particular day, whether a person says Hallel, doesn't say Hallel, with a bracha, without a bracha, those are technical details that are certainly rooted in much machlokes. But at the end of the day, our avoda, every single Jew, has to be filled with profound Hakaras Hatov, profound gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the fact that we once again have unfettered access to our homeland. The idea that we live in a time where the only thing standing between you and the holy soil of our ancestral homeland is the price of an airline ticket, which these days is quite high. But aside from that, that is the only thing that is standing between us. Not border control, not foreign nations, not immigration quotas, but that, again, should a person decide today that by tomorrow afternoon, I want to be in Eretz Yisrael, all it takes is a trip to Newark, all it takes is a trip to JFK, and you're there. Let's say that is a miracle. That is a miracle. My grandparents, zichrono livracha, for a good part of their lives, did not have that opportunity. Had they had that opportunity, had their families had that opportunity, the truth is, had millions of Jews had that opportunity, the way Klal Yisrael would look today would be so dramatically different. We can never take that for granted. Is it a perfect state? Absolutely not. Is it a perfect government? Absolutely not. But nothing in this world is perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. The only thing that is perfect in this entire universe is the Ribono Shel Olam. That's it. If you're not a Kodesh Baruch Hu, by definition, you are riddled with imperfection. But just because something is imperfect doesn't mean it's not magnificent, doesn't mean it's not beautiful, and doesn't mean it's not holy. The Medinas Yisrael, the founding of the state, is a chefzel shel kedusha, chefzel shel geula, and actively brings us closer to Mashiach each and every day. That we have the opportunity to have a homeland that has a proliferation of Torah, that has a proliferation of technology, that has a proliferation of medicine, that with incredible siyata d'shmaya has one of the strongest, fiercest armies in the world. It's a Neis Nigla. It's a Neis Nigla, less than a century after 6 million of our brothers and sisters, men, women, and children, were just literally lagva kelis, we're slaughtered, we're butchered, that we, Baruch Hashem, have the ability to stand strong, that we have the ability to stand confident, that we have the ability to face anti-Semitism today. I would say, in the past, what would have been the Jewish response to anti-Semitism? Right? It would have been to cower. It would have been, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't wear my yarmulke out in public. Maybe I shouldn't. And today it's different. Today it's interesting how we go ahead and we respond to anti-Semitism in a dramatically different way, with the head held high, with a little bit of a chest puffed out. And no, we're not going to cower, and we're not going to run, and we're not going to be afraid. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about this, and he says the ability of the Jew to counter anti-Semitism with a sense of strength and a sense of self, he says, is a direct result of the founding of the state of Israel. It's because the founding of the state gave us a ga'ava yehudit, gave us a sense of Jewish pride, gave us the ability to say, you know what? We spent thousands of years running. We don't have to run anymore. And even though we are not there, but the knowledge that we have the ability to be there, the knowledge that our brothers and sisters are there, the knowledge that the precious borders of Eretz are defended by our army, gives us a sense of pride. It gives us a sense of strength and a sense of resolve to meet our national challenges wherever they are. So I was saying, today is a day where you must stop for a moment and you must say, Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki li olam chasdo. Ribono Shel Olam, thank you for letting me live in a generation, and in a time where I have a home, where I have access to that home, where I can be with my brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, in Medinat Yisrael, if I should choose to do so. I will say, when you look at the historical context of our nation, that is a miracle. That is a tremendous and overwhelming miracle. Maybe zoche me'eretz Hashem to see the continuation of that miracle, because it's only the beginning. It's aschalta de geula. Not that the founding of the state was aschalta de geula, to be clear. The founding of the state of Israel was not the beginning of Messianic redemption. Messianic redemption started the moment after the second Beis HaMikdash was set ablaze. That's how geula works. The moment that destruction occurs, the seeds of geula are planted. So to say that the state was the aschalta, the beginning of geula, that is not true. That is not true. But it certainly is a meaningful and significant step moving us forward. So I will say, so make sure today to find your way to express Hakaras Hatov. Whether it's that you're going to give extra tzedakah to Eretz Yisrael causes, whether it's that you're going in your own tefillah to be able to go ahead and just say, Ribono Shel Olam, thank you. Thank you. I don't take this gift for granted. I don't take this gift for granted. I will say, even the fact that Baruch Hashem as a Kehillah, we're working hard on establishing this satellite community in Katamonim. Who would have ever thought that such a thing like this was ever possible? Who would have ever thought that such a thing like this was a possibility? I was talking to someone before, and I was saying the idea that yesterday, I'm talking the idea that I'm going to be the first person in Eretz Hashem in my family, probably since the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, to be able to help establish a home and a community in Yerushalayim Yirah Kodesh. No one in my family in past generations, probably since the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, ever had the opportunity to do that. And that's only possible because of the great miracle that we celebrate and we commemorate and we give Hakaras Hatov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for on this day. So however you're going to choose to celebrate it, however you're going to choose to commemorate it, make sure to find your unique way to express your Hakaras Hatov. We'll say with that, let us begin. Today's daf, Mazel Tov, I'm starting the new parak. Today's daf is Ayin Vav 76, and we are picking up in Eretz Hashem at the new Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Hey on base 75b. So the Mishnah says as follows. We'll say really interesting parak ahead of us today. Hasocher es ha'umnin. So we'll say a person hires workers. Now we're going to also discuss the idea that there are various types of workers. Various types of workers. We'll go through all of them. We're not have to go through them right now. V'hetu zeh. And they literally, again, deceived each other. Now, it's not clear who's deceiving who in this. Is it the workers deceiving each other? The balabayis, right? The person who's doing the hiring, deceiving the workers. So again, we'll see this in the Gemara. Ein lahem zeh al zeh ela taromes. So we'll say they have there's no recourse against each other except taromes. Taromes means that literally they have the complaints, braigus, as they say in the vernacular. Right, so they have no legal complaints against each other. They just can be braigus. Sachar es hachamar v'esakeda lahavi preifrin. So we'll say if you hired a chamar is a donkey driver. Kedar is a potter. So we'll say you hire these individuals. Lahavi preifrin. Now we'll say preifrin are, Rashi points out over here, interesting. Rashi says preifrin is eitzim meshupim v'noim lasos la'apirion. This is finished wood to be used to make a chuppah. That's being used to make a chuppah. So I'll say, so if you hire someone, now it's interesting. I understand the chamar. The chamar is the donkey driver, right? So he has a donkey. What does the potter have to do with this? So Rashi points out that potters, right, who made pottery, often also had their own transport animals. So the idea over here is I'm hiring the donkey driver, I'm hiring the potter in order to bring shaved wood, right? Finished wood for the chuppah. The chalilin, or to bring flutes. I will say, why bring a flute? Either lakala for a chuppah or olames or for a levaya. I will say they had this interesting. We saw this in Moed Katan. They had this interesting practice to play. What are they? Flautists? Is that the right term for someone? Right? Flautists. So to play instruments. It's fascinating, but right. If you think about it, by us, if you talk about like playing music at a levaya, it sounds like crazy. You know where you see this? You do see this is in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, singing by the Yisrael, especially when it's a loss because of a terror attack or something. The notion of like shira, of singing by a levaya as a way of expressing collective grief, is very profound and very powerful. So they would have, and again, it's not new. I mean, for us it seems new, but again, the Gemara talks about this idea that they'd have these flautists. They would play the flute. So you hired someone to bring wood, or you hired someone to bring flutes. Either again for the mace, for levaya, or lekala or the mace, or for that matter, you hired workers to go ahead and take your flax out of the water. Remember again, you soak flax, and the chap over here is you need someone to take it out. Now we'll say, the idea, the common denominator over here is, I hired workers for anything that's called a Devorah Leah. I will say Devorah Leah means something that if you don't do it now, there is going to be a material loss, right? We're going to discuss, bless you, we're going to discuss that there are two different types of work. I can hire someone to do something, and the truth is, if they back out, it's not a big deal. In other words, it's a big deal, but I'm not going to suffer a loss. I just need to find someone else to go ahead and do the work. But if I don't find someone else for a day, or two, or even a week, it's fine. It's fine. It's versus a Devorah Leah, which is a job that needs to get done right now. So these examples over here, right? I need someone to go ahead and bring wood for the chuppah, right? So again, the chuppah is happening today. I need it done today, or I need flutes for the chuppah or for the levaya. That's happening today. Or I need someone to take the flax out from the water. That's happening today. So if those things don't get done today, then at the end of the day, there's a material loss. There's a material loss. So what's the halacha? So the chazru bahen. So we'll say, so now what happens? The workers reneged. Now we'll say we're going to talk about these. This is a case over here of where the workers walked off the job. So what's the halacha? Makom she'ein sham adam. So we'll say, so now what happens if halacha lamaisa? So we're going to see two scenarios. Again, there's like a lot of sub-cases. So I hired workers to go ahead and bring wood for the chuppah. Let's make it a positive case, right? Or flutes for the chuppah. And now what happens? I hired them and then they reneged. So we'll say, so now I need to find someone now to do this because this is a Devorah Leah. So obviously, if it's easy to find replacement workers, then what? Hire replacement workers. Okay. So the Gemara says, but what if it's makom she'ein sham adam? We'll say, what if it's a place where it's not easy to find replacement workers? You know, what do we do then? Socher aleihem. Then we'll say, we see you could hire new workers, and again, I will say the chap over here is you could go ahead and hire new workers at even a much higher price. You see, sometimes in order to get last minute labor, that's going to be at a premium. So you could go ahead and hire new workers even at a premium. Or the balabas could trick the workers that he hired. Now we'll discuss what all of these things mean in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, omitan, right? Or ultimately, again, you could trick them. So again, I will say the idea over is we begin to see, again, we'll see all this in the Gemara, but we begin to see something very interesting, that if you hire workers and they walk out on you, and it's easy enough to go ahead and find new labor, you don't really have recourse. If workers walked out on you, and it's a Devorah Leah, whatever the work you hired them to do was something for which there is a material loss. If it doesn't get done, then lemaisa, you could hire new workers even at a higher price, or you could trick the current workers you have. Now, when we speak about you could hire workers at a higher price, so we'll say, so what does it mean? Of course, I could do whatever I want. What does it mean? We're going to see what it means is, technically speaking, you could potentially pass that elevated cost onto the workers who walked out on you. Again, so we'll get into all of this in just a little bit. So we'll say ultimately, again, if you hired workers, I hired workers, and then what? And then ultimately, again, the workers started to work, and then I reneged on the workers. So you both say case number one is where the workers reneged on me. They walked off the job. Case number two is I hired workers, and they did a little bit of work, and then I said, guys, I'm done with you. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Yodam al hatachtona. Right? I'm sorry, chazubain. And ultimately, then they walked off the job. So what's like case number two? We're going to be mechali. Case number two is where ultimately, again, the workers did some of the work and then walked off the job. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Yodam al hatachtona. Ultimately, again, they have the lower hand. Top of Ayin Vav 76a in Balabayis Chozerbo. If the Balabayis reneged against them, so Yodo ala Tachtona, then he has the lower hand. Why? Because the Mishnah espouses a principle called Mishane Yodo ala Tachtona. We'll say here it is. At the end of the day, whoever changes the agreement has the lower hand, which is intuitive, right? So in other words, when you have a contract with someone, you have an agreement with someone, and then you change the terms of the agreement. At the end of the day, you have the lower hand. V'chala chozer bo, similarly again, whoever goes ahead and recants or retracts, chozer means you go back on your word, yado ala tachtona, ultimately again has the lower hand. Okay, so we'll say, so that last principle, so essentially what we see in the Mishnah, both say, is that there are, we'll go through all of this, but there are a number of different cases in which you could have a change in an employment agreement, right? So case number one, well, we don't have to go through all of them again, but bottom line is, whoever reneges has the lower hand. Now, what that means, practically speaking, in Metzia Hashem, we will see in the year. I will say, there's a Biasua quoted in the name of Baal Shem Tov, that there's a beautiful idea, this lashon of kala mashana yado ala tachtona. What does that mean? So again, the way we translate it is, if you change the agreement, you have the lower hand. If you chozer, if you go back on the agreement, you have the lower hand. So I saw quoted, beautiful idea, that what it also means is as follows. Kala mashana. I will say, there are people who make mistakes in their past. By people, I mean all of us, right? We make mistakes in our past, and we spend so much time lamenting and wishing we could go back and change what has happened. The Gemara says, Kala Meshana, if you spend your life trying to go back and change the past, Yado ala tachtona. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can't change the past. The past is what it is, and to spend your life energy lamenting it, to spend your life energy trying to change it, Yada ala tachtona, it's not going to work. Similarly, v'chol chozer bo, anyone who tries to constantly live a retrospective life, anyone who tries to go ahead and constantly go back, constantly go ahead and try to figure out, if only I didn't do this, or if only I did this, Yada ala tachtona. Ultimately, again, he has the lower hand. To live a retrospective life, to live a life where I'm constantly reliving and regretting and having remorse over the past and wishing I could do things differently. Again, there's certainly a part of that is tshuva, but to spend your life doing that, yado ala tachtona, such a person is going to lead an underaccomplished life. One has to let the past be the past, learn from it, grow from it. Yes, have a certain element of charata over it, but then put the bulk of your energies into maximizing your present and your future. That's such a beautiful idea. Says the Gemara, Chazru zebazalo katani. It doesn't say that they reneged against each other. Rather, it says ele hitu ze'edzeh. Rather, it says they both say that they misled each other. So the Gemara says, so who are we talking about? So both say, so here's what's interesting. The Gemara is making the following distinction. Chazru would mean someone reneged. Now I will say, when you're talking about reneging, who's reneging on who? That's either the balabais. I also remember again, the balabais is the, what do we call him? We'll call him the employer, right? The polim are the employees. So chazru would mean the employer went ahead and reneged. All right, went back on the agreement with the employees, or the employees reneged on the employer. That would be the lashon of chazru. Somebody went back on the agreement. Hitu is someone misled. Someone misled. So the Gemara says, Chazru zebazelo katani. The Mishnah doesn't say Chazru, right? It says, Asochar sapolim vehitu zedze. Someone hired workers and they misled each other. So if it would have said Chazru, I would have understood we're talking about a case of the balabayas reneging against the employer against the employees, or the employees against the employer. So hitu zedze, but it doesn't say that. What does hitu mean? Da'atu polim hadadi. It must mean the workers misled each other. I will say, now, what's the case of the workers misleading each other? Hey, Ridami, here we go. This is very interesting. The Amrlei Balabais. Shabbos say, now watch this. The Balabais says, Zil oger li polim. So we'll say, so watch this. The Balabais says to Ruvain, go out and hire me workers. Go out and hire me workers. Okay? Zil oger li polim. Va'azal ihu, va'ateinhu. And Ruvain went out, and Ruvain misled the workers. That's what happened over here. So again, essentially also you have three parties over here in this transaction. You have Ruvain, who is the balabais. I should say, you have balabais, we'll just call balabais. Balabais hires Ruvain. Ruvain hired me workers. Ruvain hires the workers, but he misleads them. Okay, what happened? So now watch this. If balabais said Ruvain, go ahead, hire me 4 workers at 4 zuz a day. I will say, I just want to point out over here, we're going to talk about 2 different types of workers. There's something called the schir yom. A schir yom is literally a day labor. You pay him a fixed amount of money for a day of work. Versus a kablon. Kabbalah is someone who you hire to do a job. So that you really get paid by the job, and however long or short the job takes, that's the amount of money that you are making. So listen, now watch this. If we're talking about over here, where the Balabai said to Ruvain, hire me some day laborers, and I'm willing to pay a rate of 4 zuz a day. Okay. So the Gemara said, what happened? So let's see now what happens. Ruvain goes out. Ruvain hires the workers, but he hires them at 3 zuz a day. So maybe that's the case of Hitu, right? So now Ruvain, who's also a worker, is misleading the other workers, because really the Balabai said 4 zuz a day, and Ruvain is hiring them at 3 zuz a day. Well, if that's the case, the Gemara says, Tarumas ma'avidete savar v'kabel. I don't understand. What recourse do the workers have? The workers knew, right? The workers allowed themselves to be hired for 3 zuz a day. So that's the amount that they heard. That's the amount that they accepted. That's it. Shalom Yisrael. There's nothing more to talk about. Why are we having any more conversation about this? The Gemara says, so now watch this. Now, what about, maybe it was the reverse case. Balabai said, Ruvain, go hire me workers for 3 zuz a day. And what happened? Ruvain hired them for 4 zuz a day. So the Gemara says, so now let's analyze this a bit more. The Gemara says, so we'll say, so now if when Ruvain hired the workers, Ruvain said, guys, I'm hiring you on behalf of Balabayas for 4 zuz a day, and I, Ruvain, am guaranteeing your wages, then Nasav Le'midi day. Then Ruvain's on the hook for that. I was going to say, if Ruvain came along and Ruvain said, guys, I'm hiring you on behalf of Balabayas, and the wage is 4 zuz, and I Ruvain, guarantee the wage, then that's on Ruvain. Right? Balabais only guaranteed how much? 3 zuz. Ruvain, you want to be generous? You want to be generous and offer 4 zuz? No problem. But that's on you. The Side said this is actually a great case. We're going to see. Well, this is a very exciting parak that has a lot to do with, these cases come up all of the time. The sign, you watch this. Both say, now watch this. The Brisa says, I go ahead and I hire a worker to work on my field. And what happens? But you know, this is an interesting case. I hire someone to work on my field, but then I take the worker to Ruvain's field. Right? Then I have the worker do work on Ruvain's field. So what's talacha? No sin lo schara mishalim. So I have to pay the worker, right? Since I hired the worker, I have to pay the worker his wage. I could then go back to Ruvain and charge Ruvain for the hano he got. So we'll say there's a lot being thrown at us over here. We're going to see this concept that will say that when someone does something actively beneficial for you, even if you didn't ask for it, you still have to pay for it. Now, again, what you have to pay, how we evaluate the service, we'll see. The point over here, I will say, is that when I hire a worker, right, that's on me. So going back to our case over here, if halacha l'maisa Balabayis told Ruvain, go and hire workers for me for 3 zuz a day. Ruvain goes and hires workers and he says, Chevra, I'm hiring you for a wage of 4 zuz a day. Right? And schar alai, salary is on me. So again, that's it. Ruvain committed himself. Balabayis is only on the hook for 3 zuz. Ruvain is on the hook for 4 zuz. So what's the issue over here? Okay. So Ruvain's a smart guy. Ruvain's not taking personal responsibility. So what does Ruvain do? So just to illustrate the case over here. So the case over here is, Balabayis tells Ruvain, go hire workers for me. How much? 3 zuz a day. Ruvain goes out and he hires workers for 4 zuz a day, and he says, Chevra, don't worry, I know the Balabayis, he's a good guy. He's good for it. The workers do the work, right? And now again, they want to get paid 4 zuz. So what I'm talking about, I only committed myself to 3 zuz. So I will say, so this would be a case of, so remember, all the Gemara is trying to do over here is to define the opening phrase of the Mishnah. Hasocher eso omnen vehitu zeh zeh. Somebody hired workers, and the worker that we're assuming it means the workers deceived each other. So we'll say, what's the case of the workers deceiving each other again? Balabai says to Ruvain, hire me workers for 3 zuz. Ruvain hires them for 4 zuz, and Ruvain says, guys, don't worry about it. The Balabais is good for it. Workers do the work. They come to get paid. Balabais gives them 3 zuz. So the workers say 3 zuz. Ruvain told us 4 zuz. So Balabais could say, guys, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened over here, but I only guaranteed 3 zuz. Therefore, the Mishnah says, Ein lahem zeh al zeh ela taromes. There's no legal recourse there. There's no legal recourse there. All they could do, all the workers could do, is be bregis with balabayis. The Gemara says, so we'll say, but why don't we look at what is the normal going wage for workers? Right? In other words, there's got to be a standard. So do workers get hired at 3 zuz a day or 4 zuz a day? To which the Gemara says, no, lo tzricha di'ika demiska ba'arba, me'ika demiska betlasa. I will say in the labor market, there's what's the word? A range. There's a range, right? There's a range. So therefore, again, 3 zuz is normal, 4 zuz is normal. So the Gemara says, da'amr lahu, because the workers could say, ilav da'amrit lan barba, tarchinon umiskran barba. So we'll say, so the workers could say, look, you know what, it's not right, because we only agreed to work for Balabayas, because Ruvain told us that he was hiring for 4 zuz. Had he not told us that, we would have declined the job, and we would have looked for a different job that you can get for zuz. All right, ibay sema. So we'll say. So remember, we're just trying to figure out what the first line of the Mishnah means. So we are assuming right now, hire workers. Hitu zed must mean that the workers are deceiving each other. So we're trying to figure out what is the case of worker deception. Ibay sema. The Gemara says maybe another possibility is hacha balabayis askinon. Maybe the case of us is really dealing with balabayis is deceiving them. Da'amrulei. Ilo da amrit lan barba sorry. Hakama askinan, sorry. Ibay sema babalabayis askinan. So we'll say, watch this. We're saying maybe the case is where the workers themselves are also landowners. So we'll say, so the day laborers that you're hiring also own their own land. So therefore we'll say, they say da amr lahu ilav da amrit lan barba havazila b'milsan lan skure. They say to Ruvain, or they say to Balabayis, the only reason we agreed to be a day laborer is because you were offering a wage of 4 zuz a day. Had we realized that you were not offering 4 zuz a day, we would have never accepted this employment. Why? Because it's degrading for us. We're landowners ourselves, right? So to accept day employment is beneath our dignity. We only did it because at the end of the day, it was good money. But now that I realize that it's not good money, we would have never accepted it. Okay, ibay. So the other possibility is bepol maskinan. We're talking about the workers themselves. The amrile, kevan da amritlan ba'arba, tarchinon va'avdinon lecha avidita shapirta. So I will say this is very interesting. So what happens? So again, I will say same case of where the laborers, right? So again, Balabayis tells Ruvain, go hire me workers for 3 zuz. Ruvain goes out and he says to the workers, I'm hiring you guys, I'm having Balabayis for 4 zuz. They come to get paid. Balabayis gives them 3 zuz. Like, hey, what's going on over here? We're entitled to 4 zuz. And furthermore, because you are giving us a higher wage, we did a better job. I will say, by the way, this is such a fascinating Gemara. I will say, this I think is such a, you can tell a lot about a person. I will say, there are some people who will only give you the amount of effort commensurate with what they are getting paid. Right? In other words, if I'm getting paid X, I'm going to give you X. That's all. I'm not giving you any more than that. And I will say, there are some people who take tremendous pride in what it is that they do and try to give 100% to everything they do, independent, not fully independent, but somewhat independent of the wage that they are receiving. And so I've often found that generally, that is the distinction between successful people and mediocre people. Mediocre people will do what they need to do to get by, will do what they need to do to quote-unquote earn the wage, and nothing more. Successful people ultimately take tremendous pride in whatever it is that they're putting their mind to, and will roll up their sleeves and get the job done in a meaningful and powerful way. Giving 100%, even if the remuneration is not. So I remember in my first rabbanat's position, I was an assistant rabbi, and it was a part-time position, and I met with the senior Rav, big tzaddik, Rabbi Binyamin Yudin, and he said to me, the first thing he said to me, he said, the only thing part-time about this job is the salary. So the only thing part-time about this job is the salary. And it was the most important thing that anyone ever said to me in my life. Because what he was saying is, if you're going to do this, if you're going to do it, then do not calculate the amount of effort you're going to put in based on the amount of money that you are receiving. because then you'll get by, you'll earn your salary, and you won't make a difference. If you want to make a difference, give it 100%, even though you are only getting paid for 50% of your time. It was the most transformative piece of Eitzah that I ever received in my entire life. And I will say, it's not just about what you do as an employee. It's about what you do in life. What you do in life. And I will say, when you do something, I say, how many times do we do things and we do them 80%? Why? If you're going to do it 80%, then just don't do it. If it's meaningful enough to do it, then do it 100%. Again, you can't always come through 100%. You can't always actualize 100% of results. But if you're going to do it, then put your full self into it. So the Gemara goes weiter. So what happens? The guy says, you hired me for 4 zuz. I did a 4 zuz job. Had I known that you were hiring me for 3 zuz, I would have given you a 3 zuz job. I'll give you a 3 zuz job. So the Gemara says, I just want to point out, this Yisod, I will say, you have to plug it into everything. If you're going to learn, you're going to be kaveya, that you're doing the daf, so give it your all. Just, again, I don't mean give it your all, like quit your day job and just do it. I mean, so you're allocating time towards it, so give it 100% of the time. Right? Whatever you're going to do, you're home for dinner with your kids, put your phone away, take off your iWatch, right? And be there 100% of the time. Whatever it is you're davening. Again, if you're going to daven 100% of the time that you're davening. Just don't get distracted. Don't be doing other things. The problem is, I will say, we do so many things and we just do them 80% of the way. So suddenly, I'm a 3 zuz guy. In other words, you pay me for 3 zuz, I'm 3 zuz. Instead, life is all about, even if you're getting paid 3 zuz, give 4 zuz worth of work. Whatever you're going to do, give it 100%, or maybe it's not worth doing. In other words, if there's something in life that you don't really want to give 100% to, it could very well be that it's not kedai to do it, and you should put your efforts elsewhere. But if you're going to do it, be focused. If you're going to do it, give it your attention. And if you're going to do it, then do 4 zuz worth of work. Such an incredible Gemara. So the Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says, I velechse. So the Gemara says, Adamri gave I velechse. So we'll say, why don't we look at his work? And see, did the worker give 3 zuz worth of work or 4 zuz worth of work? Rivka. What's about a ditch? Where he dug a ditch. So he says, I dug a 4 zuz ditch. The Gemara says it's the type of work where you can't really see the quality. The Gemara says that's not true. Rivka nami meida yada. I will say you could see the quality of work in anything and everything. Even in a ditch, I will say. So apparently, again, I guess if you're well versed in ditches, you could see what a good dish looks like and what a bad dish looks like. The Mishnah says Debali Maya. No, because the dish is filled with water. So now I will say, now we can't see. I can't really see. Did he do a 3 zuz job or a 4 zuz job? The Gemara says V'lo yadia. Ibai says another possibility is the Amar Leolam the Amar Le Balabai Ispar Ba Va'azal Ihu Amarlu B'Tlasa. So we'll say, let's go back. Remember, we'll say we're laser focused over here. We're just trying to figure out what is the Mishnah talking about. That's it. So the Gemara says, what's the case? The case is where Balabayis said to Ruvain, Balabayis said, Ruvain, hire me workers for 4 zuz. Ruvain goes out, Ruvain goes out, and ultimately, again, he hires workers for 3 zuz. The Gemara says, now beforehand, we dismiss this. We dismiss this case. Why do we dismiss this case? So we'll say, so ultimately, again, because we said, look, the workers accepted that, right? In other words, Ruvain said 3 zuz. The workers said, okay. So at the end of the day, they accepted it. So that's not really a case. Which Gemara says, the Amrilei, les lecha al timna tov mibailov. Now we'll say they do have a taina. What's their taina? They say to Ruvain, the pasuk in Mishlei, al timna tov mibailov. Do not withhold good from the owners of that good or the recipients of that good. In other words, let's say they say to Ruvain, why would you do that? Why would you do that at the end? Now, I understand that Ruvain would do that, right? Why would Ruvain do that? Because Ruvain's hoping that he could pocket the extra zuz per worker. That's why he's doing it, right? But Lamaisa, what their tining is, I will say, is the Balabais is willing to pay us 4. So it's true, be accepted at your rate of 3, but why would you withhold that from us? I will say, the Gemara says, while that's an impassioned plea, it's not a halachic argument. And at the end of the day, if they went ahead and they accepted 3, they accepted 3, and there's nothing more to talk about. All right, so Pshita, so here we go. So Pshita, I Amarli Balabayis Bitlasa, Va'azal Iu Amarli Ba'arba. So we'll say, now watch this. So we'll say, so therefore, we're assuming right now that the opening phrase of the Mishnah of Hasocher Esa Omnin Vehitu Ze'et Ze is talking about the following case. Balabayis engaged Ruvain to hire workers, and Ruvain hired them at a wage different than the Balabayis. So the easiest way to illustrate this is, Balabayis said 4 zuz, Ruvain says 3 zuz, they accept 3 zuz, then they found out, hey, he was willing to pay 4 zuz, Ein lahem ze'al ze'el taromas. There's no legal recourse. Rather, you know, say all they have the right to do is to be braigus. You do have a right in life to be braigus. It is not going to get you anywhere, but you absolutely have that entitlement to sit and to stew and to brew and to be upset and to be braigus, right? That is your right. You are entitled. We live in a very entitled time. Everyone is entitled to something. Now the Mishnah tells us you are entitled to be braigus. Fine, but no legal recourse. So the Gemara says, now we transition to a different kind of case. So Pshita, I Amarli Balabayis Bitlasa. Watch this. So if the Balabayis, right? Balabayis said three zos, right? Va'asa iu va'amarli ba'arba, and Ruvain, who's engaged to hire the workers for 4. Va'amri le kimasha amar Balabayis. So let's say, now watch this. Now the workers, after you learn this parak, right? You recognize that whenever you're getting hired by someone on behalf of the Balabayis, you always recognize that what? There may be a differential between what Reuven is telling you what the Balabayis is actually saying. So therefore, these workers are smart. So what do the workers say? The workers say, Va'amrulei kimasha amar Balabayis. Right? The workers say, you know what? Reuven, thank you. Yes, we accept. And we accept on whatever terms the Balabayis himself said. So we'll say, so therefore what? Datayu Ailuya. So obviously, again, their intention is for what? For the 4 zuz. Right? They have a feeling that maybe, again, Ruvain is going ahead and underselling the job. So they accept whatever the Balabayis says. And when they say that Lashon, we accept this employment in accordance with the terms of the Balabayis, they are accepting the higher amount. Ella, I Amarli Balabayis Ba'arba Va'azul Iu Amarli B'tlasa. I will say, what happens in the following case? What happens if the Balabayis says, right? The Balabayis says, I'm sorry, I reversed that case. Balabayis was saying 3, Ruvain said 4, so they go ahead and they say whatever the Balabayis said. So it says, obviously their intention is for the higher wage of the 4. They'll say, what happens now? And I'll say, because in that case, because Ruvain is putting forth the higher amount, obviously their das is for the higher amount. Right? That's obvious. That's for the higher amount. What happens in the following case? Balabayis said 4. Ruvain comes along and says 3. Va'amri kimash amar Balabayis. And they say, in accordance with what the Balabayis told you. So we'll say, so now the shaila is mai. Adibura dideka samchi da'amrle mehem nislan da'hachi amar Balabayis. Or dima adibura de Balabayis kasamchi. Now the Gemara is asking where you saw this the question. Right? So in this case over here, Balabayis went ahead and said 3. Balabayis said 4. Right? Ruvain comes along and hires them for 3. The way they accept this employment is by saying what? Whatever the Balabayis told you, we accept. So Moshe says, now the shaila is, what do they accept? Do we assume that what they're accepting that they're accepting the 4 of the Balabayis, that they're not really trusting what Ruvain said, but they're going with whatever the Balabayis said? Or no, Ruvain is the one who's engaging them, and therefore they take Ruvain's word at face value, and therefore again they accept Ruvain's offer. That's the shaila. So we'll say, this is the more Yisodistic question. Now, the reason why this case is different is because they're accepting the employment by saying the Amri Kimasha Amar Balabayis. In this case, they're accepting the employment by saying, Ruvain, we accept with whatever terms the Balabayis said. So what does that mean? Does that mean they're accepting Ruvain's word, or they're going with the Balabayis' word? So I will say, so in a case where the Balabayis said 3 and Ruvain said 4, so it's clear they're going with the higher wage. But in the case where the Balabayis said 4 and Ruvain's saying 3, so I will say, so what do you do? And they say we accept with the terms of the Balabayis. Are they accepting Ruvain's terms of 3 or the Balabayis' terms of 4? To which one is that's not. It's a great case. Tashma. Have legiti v'ishtacha amr iskav legiti. So we'll say, watch this. Ruvain is married to Rachel and they're getting divorced. Rachel hires a shaliach. Rachel tells her shaliach, bring me my get. bring me my get. Now she is appointing, remember from our Gittin days, a shliach lekabbalah. Right, a shliach to accept, to go ahead. A shliach laholacha. Excuse me. She is accepting a shliach to bring her the get, not to accept it on her behalf. Right? Remember again, a shliach lekabbalah acquires the get on her behalf. So she appoints a shliach, bring me my get. The shliach misrepresents himself in front of Ruvain, the husband, and he says, Ruvain, give me the get, and I will acquire it on behalf of Rachel. So what's the halacha? V'hu omer heilach kimasha amra, and Ruvain, the husband, says, okay, listen, take the get, and just take it as my wife said, as Rachel said. So Rabbi say, what's the halacha over here? Amrav nachman, Amrav Ravu, Amrav, afilu higia get liyada ina migurashas. So Rav said, Rabbi say, even if the get gets to her hands, she is not divorced. Why not? Shamas mina adibura didei kasamech. So we'll say, what do you see from here? That when there is, that we accept the wording of the shaliach. So the husband, when he gives over the get to the shaliach, is taking the shaliach at his word. The shaliach says that is a shliach lekabbalah, right? And therefore, again, the husband is accepting that. So therefore, also when the husband gives the get, he's giving it to a shliach lekabbalah. The problem is that what? She's not a shliach lekabbalah. Therefore, there's no divorce. Because if you say that we go with her word, so the Gemara says, she should at least be divorced when the get actually reaches her hands. To which the Gemara says, Rav Ashi says, no, Abba say, Amud Beis, Haki Hashta. So Abba says, therefore the Gemara wants to suggest, let's plug this back into our case. What's our case, Abba say? The Balabayas said 4, right? Shliach said 3. Ruvain said 3. Workers say, Kimasha Amar Balabayas. We accept the terms of the appointments the Balabayas said. Gemara says, based on this, what should we say? They accepted 3. They accepted 3 because they're accepting ultimately, because essentially what we do is we take the word of the shaliach. We take the word of the shaliach at face value as representative of the das, of the mishaliach, of the principle. So just like in the get case, Reuben is assuming he's giving the get to a shliach lekabbalah. So too again, the workers assume that Reuben is representing the das of the balabayis. And therefore again, Reuben is saying 3, that must be what the balabayis is saying as well, to which the Gemara says, no. The cases are not comparable. Haki hashta, bishtama itmar ipcha, hiskaba ligiti, v'ishtecha amrahave ligiti. So both by the get case, if he would have said the opposite, right? The opposite being, Rachel would have said to Shaliach, accept the get on my behalf. And now when Shliach shows up, he tells the husband, Ishtecha amra li have ligiti, I'm Shliach lekabbalah. V'hu omer heilach kimosha amra. And Reuven says to the Shaliach, take the get as my wife told you. V'amrav nachman arav aravu amarav. Mishiagia get yado migureshas. Ultimately, again, once the get reaches Shliach's hands, she's migureshas. Why? Because the Shliach lekabbalah. Ama dadibura dido kasamech. That would show you that ultimately, again, we're relying on her words. Inami mishiagia get liyado migureshas. Or when the get reaches her hands, ultimately, again, she should be migureshas. Ama dadibura dido kasamech. Because then that would show that we're relying on her words. This case is different. Elahasa mishum da'akar shliach lishlichuse legamre. Rabbi say the get case is a different case. In the get case, Rachel made the shliach laholacha, transport shliach. The shliach made himself into a shliach lekabbalah. What was he effectively doing? Da'akar shliach lishlichuse legamre. The shliach is essentially totally uprooting his shlichus. The Amrlei, Shliach lekabbalah havina, laholacha lo havina. Both in that case of Gittin, he's totally uprooting his shlichus. And what he's saying is, she made me into a Shliach leholacha. I don't want to be a Shliach leholacha. My whole life, all I wanted to be was a Shliach lekabbalah. I hereby repudiate that shlichus, and hereby again give myself a new shlichus. That sounds beautiful, except that what? You can't give yourself a new shlichus. The shlichus that you get is the shlichus that you have. And you can't go ahead and suddenly decide, I want the new shlichus. It's true in Gittin, and it's true in life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us each a shlichus as well, where we each have a mission. We each have an agency. So you may decide you don't like the shlichus, you want something else. That's fine, you can say it, but it doesn't work. The shlichus that you are given is the shlichus that you have in Eretz Hashem until you fulfill your mission. So therefore I will say that's why the Gittin case doesn't work. But by our case, ultimately, again, it's not a raya. Ibay Zema. So we'll say, Ibay Zema. High Tanis. We'll say, so remember again, our entire Gemara so far is trying to figure out one simple thing, which is, what is the meaning ultimately, again, of of the opening Mishnah. I will say now, I just want to point out that last piece, the Gemara leaves a little bit unresolved, right? So the Gemara says over here, this last piece, when the workers say, right, again, Balabayis said 4, right, Ruvain said 3, workers said, Kimasha Amar Balabayis. We accept the terms of the employment as the Balabayis said. What does that mean? What does that mean? Are they accepting the Shali, right? Are they accepting Ruvain's words as well the Balabayis? Or no, they're literally saying, Ruvain, we almost don't care what you're saying. Whatever the Balabayis said, that's where we're going. So we'll say that's unresolved. That's still floating out there. So we'll say, but now we're back to our original question. What's our original question? What is the opening phrase of the Mishnah? Hasocher esapolim v'hitu zed zed. So we'll say, so here we go, watch this. So up until now, we've been assuming that the first case of the Mishnah is talking about where the workers are deceiving each other. How are the workers deceiving each other? That there are essentially 3 parties over here. Who are the 3 parties? Party number one, Balabayis. Balabayis is engaging Ruvain, who himself is a worker, to hire other workers. Where is the deception occurring? Between Ruvain and the other workers. Now the Gemara says, watch this. I'll say, here we go. Maybe not. Ibay Seima, Haitana Chazru, Nami Hitu Karile. Wow. Maybe not. I will say, maybe our Tana holds that the word Chazru and Hitu. Now I will say, remember again, in our Mishnah, we thought that there are 2 different terms. Chazru. What does Chazru mean? Reneging. Whenever you have reneging, who is engaging in the reneging? Who's engaging in that? Workers and Balabayis, right? That means either employee is reneging on the employer, or employer is reneging on the employee. Versus Hitu, which means workers are deceiving each other. The Gemara says, maybe not. Maybe I will say the Tanna of our Mishnah uses the word Hitu and Chazru interchangeably. And therefore, even Hitu, misleading, could mean the employee is misleading the employer, or the employer is misleading the employee. Person hired workers, they Hitu as Balabayis, and they deceive the workers, they deceive the Balabayis. O Balabayis Hitu Osan, or the Balabayis deceive them. Ein lahem ze'al ze'ela taromes. All they have is braigiskeit. So I'll say, when is that true? Shelo holchu, when they did not yet go to the job. Okay, so we'll say, so again, we'll get into this in just a moment. So we'll say, the point over here is the Gemara suggesting, it's incredible. We spent an entire Amud assuming that Hitu means workers are deceiving each other, and that's the opening phrase of the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says, by the way, maybe not. Maybe Hitu and Chazru are interchangeable. And maybe the opening line of the Mishnah is also talking about workers deceiving an employer, or an employer deceiving workers. Now we'll say, let's delve into this case. Here we go. So the Gemara says, person hires workers, and the workers go ahead and deceive. Deceive, yeah, we'll use the word deceive, although Hitu doesn't have to mean deceive. Yeah, we'll use just words. We'll use the word deceive. Hitu as balabais, or balabais Hitu as ausan. So we'll say, so while the employer deceives the employees deceive the employer, all they have is braigisness on each other. That's it. No legal claim. The Gemara says, well, when is that so? When is that so? Shelo holchu. So we'll say, that's only assuming that what? That halacha l'maisa, they have not gone to the job. Rashi says, we'll say, second one by Rashi, b'shelo holchu, l'makom hamalacha u'baboker amar lehem chozrani bi. So we'll say, when is it true that they have no legal recourse against each other? So for example, Balabayis hires workers to work his field. And we'll say, what happens? The morning before they leave, Balabayis says, forget it. So they haven't gone to the job. That's when they have no legal recourse. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, by the way, this is actually very interesting, because what the Gemara seems to be saying, will say, is, but 1 second, the workers could have said to Ruvain, they could say to the Balabayis, what? But we could have accepted other employment. So the Gemara says, you don't have, it sounds like what the Gemara is saying is, that's not a claim. So as long as Balabayis canceled on them, before they went to the job site, they have no legal recourse. Aval, holchu chamar v'lo matzah tvua. But if Balabayis hired donkey drivers, and what happened? The donkey drivers went, and they did not find any wheat to transport. Or Polim, Umaza Sadik Shilacha, was an interesting case. Or Balabayis hired workers to work his field. And they came to the field, and the field was wet. So because that, they couldn't work the soil. So we'll say, what's the halacha? No sein lahen scharan mishalim. You have to pay him. You have to pay him. So Balabayas hired workers to go ahead and transport his wheat. But Balabayas didn't have the wheat ready. Not my problem. Workers say, not my problem. You owe us a wage. Or I hired workers to go ahead and work my field, but the field was wet, couldn't be worked. Sorry, right? Not the worker's fault. You still have to pay a full wage. However, we'll say first wide line. Obviously, you have to pay, but you don't have to pay the same wage. Why am I saying? Because remember again, if I'm a donkey driver, I have to pay the donkey driver. But there's a difference between paying a donkey driver to transport an empty wagon versus a full wagon, right? Or for that matter to go ahead and come to a field and work versus not a field to do the work. So we'll say, so what's interesting is you have to pay the wage, but at the end of the day, it's not the same wage. So I can also see, you hear this? So in other words, if the worker shows up, so again, I will say two models. I cancel on the worker before the worker goes to work, no taina on me. He has no claims against me. That's case one. Worker shows up, and ultimately, again, the work is not ready for him to do. The field is flooded, can't do anything. Or the merchandise is not there, and therefore, Allah he can't transport it. So in those cases, I have to pay him, but not a full wage. Not a full wage, whatever, some type of calculator, which we'll discuss. So the Gemara says, when is this so? So we'll say, so when is this so? This is so ultimately, again, if the workers did not begin a job. So we'll say, now this is a third case. Workers didn't begin a job. So we'll say, if workers began a job, and then what? And then ultimately, again, the job was stopped. We pay them for the work that they did. So we'll say, we'll get into this in just a little bit. So we'll say, here we go. These are all, we'll say, again, I know it's a challenge now of cases, but in a minute, so we're going to pull it out, and we'll say these are fascinating cases. Kiblu kama liktza b'shnei. We'll say, watch this. I hired workers, right, I'm becoming the Bala boss now. I hired the workers to harvest my field for 2 slum. So we'll say, so just because we're going to need this in just a second, 2 slum is the equivalent of 8 dinarim, right? One sela is 4 dinar. So I hired the worker to go ahead and harvest my field. I will say, no, stop over for today. We'll pick up. We are right on schedule. We are fine. Thursday is a shorter daf. We'll say these are great cases. We got through Ezehu Neshech, right? Just fine. In Miras Hashem, we'll get through this just fine as well. So tomorrow, now what we did today is kind of outline the principles. In Miras Hashem tomorrow, we'll plug it into the cases. Shkoyach. All right, Chavra Zoom. Have a great day, everyone.